All right, so everybody, welcome to Webinar Wednesday Live. This is me, Randy Josselyn from Gateway Ticketing. This is an opportunity to get together and to share and talk about what's new and interesting in our industry. And today I'm super excited to be talking here about Las Vegas and this tourist market. And we have a great panel here to chat with us today. So this webinar is going to be about 45 minutes long. It's going to be really a community discussion. I would love it for all of us here in the room to be able to share and ask questions. We have an audience online that's going to be asking questions. They can hear me just fine right now, so we can kind of walk through some of those questions. But ultimately, we just want to have like a conversation amongst friends and friends that just have met. Like, so I've met some of y'all, and I think that's what's great about our industry. We heard a little bit before from our friend Scott Lyons about, just meeting people, and really the lifeblood of this industry is that regardless of what type of attraction you work at, or whether you're in a competition with a local attraction for maybe the tourist market or your local market, behind the scenes, everyone's friends in this industry. We can learn from each other. There's something that you can share that will always be beneficial and helpful. And I also think that we actually succeed together in this industry. If more people come to your market and more people go to your museum, it's good for every museum in the space or every zoo in the space. And that's also because when great things happen in zoos, all zoos get more people. When a giraffe is born named April, everybody freaks out about giraffes at your zoo. You might have been watching April be born online, but I guarantee the phone was ringing off the hook. The internet hits were bursting at every zoo because we all want to know what is going on at those locations, right? We all want to know, man, what baby's going to be born at your zoo? Or is a baby hippo going to be born that needs to be nursed to health in Cincinnati? Like, the most amazing story is learning about Fiona. So I love this industry because we share and we care together. And this is kind of what Webinar Wednesdays is all about, getting together with a group of people, talking about what's new and exciting. So you can go online. We've been doing this like 30 something times. We've got a Webinar Wednesday archive. You're welcome to go check them all out. But, let's talk about this group of people that's here today. So this is me. That's just what I look like. If you can't see me online, this is what I look like. I don't know if they can see me right at the moment, but we have a great group of people here today representing the Las Vegas market and the tourism industry as a whole. So joining us today are Jackie from the Mom Museum. You're the Director of Digital Marketing. Thank you for being here. Good to see you. We'll give you guys a chance to chat in a minute and introduce yourselves. But we all, for those of us that are here live, we got a chance to go to the Mob Museum, which is fantastic. It's the National Museum of Organized Crime and Law Enforcement. What a great place. I joked, I said it earlier. It used to be the tallest building in Las Vegas.
Right, it's one of the most historic builds. We're like so lucky to be in such a beautiful old building in Las Vegas, especially a city that is all about the new.
Exactly, but it's the juxtaposition of being like, oh my gosh, I'm in a courtroom where real mobsters and gangsters were right here, like trying to plead their cases. It's amazing. Yeah. Yes, it'd be amazing. We also are joined today by Pearl. Hi, Pearl. Thank you for being here. Pearl's the Director of Marketing at Area 15, which is also the juxtaposition. Totally different. Now, you just started there too, right?
Actually, we're 30 days old. The building is only a year old, so we're the very opposite of the Mob Museum.
This is great. Like, it's perfect. Well, thank you for joining us, Pearl. If you haven't gotten a chance to experience this, a lot of us did. Like, I was blown away. I wore my bright pink shirt because I wanted to glow all night long, and I did. It was great. It's just a great experience of different food and drinks and, like we said, axe throwing. It's a really wonderful, amazing place to be. We had a great time. Your team is amazing. Everyone is having fun.
And our walls do talk.
Literally, yes. And then we're also joined by Jay, the Director of Outside Sales for San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. Hello, Jay.
Hello, how are you? I don't know why I'm up here from San Diego, but to Las Vegas.
Well, you know what? It's because you are. You have so much advice to to give, because it's not that you just are part of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, the director of sales. I mean, you also serve on advisory boards for, I think it's U.S. travel. So you can advise, you have your finger on the pulse of the market, not just domestically, but internationally as well, because you advocate for people to go visit your attraction. And in doing so, you can share your learnings with everybody, right?
I would love to.
Yeah, and Jay's just awesome, and he's great at sharing information. But we behind the scenes, we got some team members that are helping out. You saw Greg. I think that they're probably working really hard right about now trying to make all this happen. But that's awesome. I appreciate them. If you can hear us online, we're delighted to have you here. I know Greg and Bill are doing our best behind the scenes. But let's talk about Las Vegas just for a moment, or for a lot of moments. But I thought this is really interesting. A lot of us here are from, I'm looking around the room and I see New York is here, Southern California is here. Big markets like the Dallas-Fort Worth area are here. Markets in Ohio are here, San Diego. And all these markets have a really similar, kind of, mix of tourists and locals and internationals. But I would say Vegas is very uniquely positioned to be such a destination. We were talking a little bit earlier, and I'm gonna just kind of, do you guys know how many millions of people live actually in this city? We were kind of.
I think it's just over 2 million in Clark County.
2 million people in Clark County, not just Las Vegas, but like the greater Las Vegas area with a 20-minute drive into. I don't know how much traffic is here, but I hear they're building tunnels. They're building tunnels underground. They can move people around faster, I hear, which is pretty awesome too. But your local market is completely diluted by your tourist market in a normal year. With the statistics are out amazing. In 2019, Las Vegas was doing over 3.5 million tourists monthly into this market. I mean, literally almost two tourists for every one local on the streets. Like that's an outstanding. I mean, if you go to Orange County and Anaheim and areas, sure, there's a lot of people that go into that space. But they're big cities, big areas between LA and San Diego and Orange County. There's millions and millions of people, right? I mean, in Jay, just as an example, what is the tourism? You have a pretty heavy tourist market in San Diego, but what is the balance there? Do you know between how many people? It's much lower than that.
I don't, and this is where it gets a little murky too, is because as an international destination, San Diego doesn't draw as many international tourists. If we do get them, a lot of them are day trippers that are coming from Los Angeles and Anaheim. So we're trying to switch the mindset to show that San Diego is a destination on the international market, but it's kind of a hard thing to push because we have so few international flights that fly into San Diego in general. We only have a BA flight coming from the UK, one from Germany, so it's tons of flight that comes in Frankfurt. We have one from Switzerland, flights. All of them are offline with the exception of that's coming once a week. And then we also have one coming from the UK. So wow, it's really difficult to draw people. It's changing. There's an actual bridge between Tijuana and into San Diego. So you can fly directly into the Tijuana airport and come into the United States that way. So we have some presence from Latin America coming across on that bridge. So it's helpful in that respect.
Yeah, but Vegas, on the other hand, I mean, I was doing some research. The Chinese tourist market alone is, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, I mean, tourism is our lifeblood in Las Vegas, certainly. At the Mod Museum, the majority of our visitors are also tourists, so that's national and international. In terms of how they get here, McCarran Airport is one of the busiest airports in the nation, and there are lots of direct flights to Las Vegas, so very easy to get to our city. And we have also seen in the past year our drive markets increase. Just because of the pandemic, we've seen a shift in how folks get to Las Vegas, so that's also kind of changed our strategies and tactics for how we communicate about the museum at Las Vegas to the rest of the nation.
Yeah, and I can't wait. We're gonna get into all that because I think that's what's really interesting is like talking to some experts in this field about how do you communicate to the market. I'm gonna give you guys some more stats that blew me away that people here in the audience probably have no idea about unless you've done a little research. Does anyone want to take a guess how many hotel rooms there are in Las Vegas? You can just throw it out because this is a panel discussion and you all are a part of this. So you could just shout out 50,000, 45,000, 38,000, over 100,000. They have over 150,000 hotel rooms. 150. The occupancy rate in 2019 was over 95%. I mean, that's outstanding. That's unreal. Like the midweek occupancy for hotel rooms, 87%. And I bring those numbers up because when you were, Jay, you were just talking about like the different markets, right? So if you're in a San Diego market and you're in a tourism drive market, you're going to see those occupancy rates go up on Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they're going to probably cruise back down. But here in Vegas, there's a dip, but that dip is not a lot. But obviously, we're not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about the future. But in doing so, it's important to know like what did these teams do? Pearl, you said you've been in the hospitality industry for like over 6 years, and before that, you're in tech. You know, it's going to be interesting to hear from them to kind of set them up to say, what did you guys do differently? You just to let you know, 3.5 million people a month visit, and then overnight, right in March, it went to 100,000. The occupancy rates in 2020, which believe it or not, you guys are going to be blown away by this. I'm shocked. In 2020, you still had almost 2 million just convention visitors alone. You had 7 million. So your convention numbers went way, way down. But it was, I mean, you still had 2 million people come and go to conventions in 2020. Because I think what's unique about Vegas, the city that never sleeps, was like defiant and said, we're not going to sleep through this, right? The lights were off for a little bit, and I heard some amazing stories about what happened. But the numbers did drop quite down. But even saying that, to see that you still had over 2 million conventions, the visitor numbers I think went from 42 million tourists down to 19. But still 19, almost 20 million people still visited in 2020. But that occupancy rate, the one that jumped out at me the most, the midweek occupancy rate went to 25%. So I mean, to think that 30,000 rooms or 40,000 rooms is what you had versus, you know, the 150,000 that you could have. It's amazing. So Natalie was really close. Apparently, Natalie's guess was bazillions, by the way. You have a bazillions of hotel rooms. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop sharing my slides. It's usually not going to be super graceful, but I'll do my best to turn off my slides so we could just focus on us as we talk. Thank you, Brian. And I'll stop sharing here. And I want to hear a little bit about you, Jackie. Tell us a little bit about your background at the Mob Museum, and then Pearl, we're going to hear from you, and then we'll talk to Jay, and we'll just kind of have a back and forth conversation of all awesome things. So why don't you tell us about the Mob Museum and Jackie? You've worked in media and digital marketing for a long time, so tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. So I'm the director of digital marketing at the Mob Museum, the National Museum of Law Enforcement. I manage all things digital communications for them. So that spans our website, our email, social media, our advertising, and just general kind of social reputation and online reputation at the museum. I've been there just over 3 years. And before that, I did digital marketing at a large media company in Vegas as well. So work with yourself over here.
That's awesome. What's the biggest change for you going from the marketing, digital marketing to actually working for the attraction? Because I know that there's a change there. Now you're focused on one very specific product. What was the biggest shift in mindset for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I went from a media company that was very local centric to an attraction in Las Vegas that is more tourist centric. So your audience completely shifts so that your strategy shifts for how do you reach more of a national audience versus what locals are reading and doing. There's also, your goals are different. At a media company, you're looking to get viewership and you're, getting news out, but at an attraction, you're trying to get people to your location. So all of it. Right, you're still using email marketing, you're still using digital advertising. It's just that you're messaging your marketing.
Awesome. Well, that's good information. I want to dive into the social aspect of that a little later too. Pearl, this has been awesome because I went to the Mob Museum a couple nights ago, then I go to your museum, and there is such an interesting difference between the two buildings. But Pearl, why don't you share a little bit about your background and history? And you did say you've only been there for 30 days, so I'd love to hear how that journey's been going for you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. And can I see show of hands towards Area 15? Okay. Oh, well, quite a few of you. So at this point, do you think you could explain what it is? Because I would say as the director of marketing there, that would be my biggest challenge. Area 15, as you know, essentially we talk about it as an attraction and experience complex that has many different things that you can do inside, including like big exhibitions like Meopolis and Mega Mart, all the way down to food and beverage like the Beast. And then we actually have partnered and owned and operated experiences like Museum Fiasco, Wink World, which was created by Chris Wink, one of the original founders of the Blue Man Group, et cetera. So there's so many things that are happening within that building that we often struggle in a great way of how to explain and get visitors to understand what they're going to see when they get inside the doors. And then we just decide maybe we don't tell them. We just let them be surprised and enjoy the experiences they get there. I previously to Area 15 was actually working in hospitality and nightlife. So very similarly, it was about how do we get people to the doors, and within the nightlife industry, a lot of the time to focus on the weekends. And the tourist markets and figuring out who needs to go where. At Area 15, I think that we do both. We actually have to think about the locals because they're going to sustain our business throughout the year. But we also want to make sure that tourists know they can come and enjoy it for the moments that they're here in Vegas. We're probably competing with time more than anything because similar to the San Diego Zoo, you can spend, you can think you'll be there for 2 hours and find yourself there for the entire day. So we're in that level. We're really challenged for time more than it is people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's unlike a nightclub, which is open from 10 p.m. until 2 or 3 in the morning, maybe 6 in the morning here in Vegas, right? We know exactly when they're going to come and when they're going to leave. To go back to something though earlier, one of the things that I found really unique about Vegas, and I'm previously from San Francisco and LA, so that marketing strategy, completely different. Like I thought I could come into Vegas, know what I know, I've got this. No, it was almost as if I was starting from scratch. The summers here are amazing because of the tourists, and then we go into the winters and the spring, and then we have to focus almost 100% on the locals market, even though we do get a lot of tourism around the holidays. It's a different type of tourist. So our strategies are shifting quarter to quarter. And although we can gauge what will happen next, in this market, we really have to think deeply about what's happening month to month and where the tourists are coming from, especially in this post-COVID world. So that's interesting here. We actually have to shift strategies quite frequently, if not have 2 separate strategies running it in parallel.
Wow, I want to.
Different type of ticket too, like the ticket that you're selling to a tourist versus the local.
Yeah, very different. Absolutely, and as a museum, it gets more complicated because we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So in addition to kind of the tourists coming in, we also try to go out into the community and get as many locals as we can coming to the museum. We do a lot of 3 days and it's local discounts to get locals to come to the museum as well. We partner with a lot of local organizations to raise awareness about the museum in the local community. So like Pearl said, you almost have 2 different campaigns running all the time between your 2 different kind of target audiences.
Yeah, and both of you strongly are advocating and offering, to the Nevada market. I think it's prominent on both your websites. Are you a Nevada resident or not? and you're discounting them to come on in and experience that. And something that happened last night, I don't see my friend Tom here, but we were we were in the Omega Mart for a long time. Just like we were in the Speakeasy for a long time. And in both situations, like somebody said, hey, I would love an annual membership to just keep coming back and back and back to experience it. Because I do love that like club feel at the Mod Museum. I want to go there. I want to be like the I want to be like a, made man where they would know me, and I feel like they bring me my drink and the little book, and I'll actually give all that stuff away, and we talked about the old fashions and stuff, but I love that. Your bartenders are top notch, by the way. I gotta tell you, like your team is they are. I heard so many great things about the service side, and for you, McKenna was amazing as an ambassador last night at Area 15 Pearl. So I mean, the people here are amazing. It's about the people. But you had said something, Pearl, that I really want to get in it about these two markets. How are you identifying? You said that it's kind of shifting month to month. If there's what tools are you using today to identify where they're coming from? Not just local market versus tourist, but what tourist markets? What tools are you using to track that? Anything exciting?
Well, in the current market, we actually are tracking a lot of the theaters. See, so anyone out of the Arizona state, California, of course, LA is a big market for us right now, especially since we're really big in the art and experiences mode with Van Gogh experiences, as well as opening a Mega Mart. We've noticed that a lot of LA customers are coming in to check us out and then actually just staying the night and then going home or going to places like the Mod Museum downtown Las Vegas, where we're also noticing a lot of tourists who have been in Vegas many times and have done the Strip a lot and want to do things off Strip. And I think that that's where Area 15 and the Mod Museum are very similar, right? Like we're trying to attract the on-Strip visitor to take the step off Strip and try something different, something new. And we're finally at a point where there is enough information, especially not only within the databases, but targeting and all the other digital marketing channels that we can use to identify who's been frequenting Vegas. And for those that have frequented, they're our best customer because they've already seen a lot of Strip shows. They've already, they've done the Strip experiences and they're now trying to look for something different, but still have the flexibility of the hundreds of thousands of rooms here in Vegas, right? Our rates are really good right now. So it allows us to attract that customer. Something that happened with Area 15 specifically, at least this is the conversations I've had with the teams there, is in order to manage capacity, and I suspect this is the same at most of your attractions, we needed an entry pass that we knew how many people were coming into the building. But we found that was actually a great way to get to know our audience as well. And so even with restrictions lifted, we still are requiring entry passes for most customers to come into our building. So we have an idea of who they are and where they're coming from. So that's been really beneficial to us. And given that we are an attraction in itself, like I think asking a customer for an entry pass isn't a lot to ask anymore, especially since they get to go to Art Island and see art and they get to see different things within the building before they're actually spending money on the attractions. That's where we've shifted a little bit, like asking for that information up front isn't as difficult now as I think it would have been in 2019 or 2018 previously.
Yeah, we've had a similar experience, and Pearl said I'm sure everyone has, right? As a result of COVID, time ticketing became a way to kind of manage your capacity for admissions. And so we also did that when we reopened, and we have kept it because it does help us manage capacities and admissions through the building, but it also, to your point, Pearl, gives us a little bit more insight into our customers' behaviors, right? You get a little more information about them when they transact online ahead of time. You also start to understand how early in advance people are purchasing, where, what times are the most popular, what our peak hours are, what can we do to incentivize people to come not on peak days and not on peak hours, so that we're, kind of leading that behavior for our admission. But in terms of how do you track how those audiences are changing. There's, all sorts of ways that you can get data either through Google Trends. If you look up Google Trends and see how many people are looking at Vegas hotels or searching for Vegas hotels and Vegas flights, and see what that trend looks like compared to 2019 or 2020. We also have a post-visit survey, as a lot of you do too, I'm sure, where we ask those questions. How did you get here? How did you learn about it? So we make decisions and change strategy based on what we gain from those surveys as well.
Wow, that's great information. And we've been talking about capacity management here in our conference, and you said about the peaks and the valleys and whatnot. And I think I was having that same conversation with one of our sponsors, Diginex, about how dynamic ticketing is helping moving that around, right? Because there's the labor shortage. We talked about it before. Sometimes you just can't operate. And what we've heard, Pearl, you were not able to hear this conversation yesterday, but some of our attractions here are finding value in saying we just can't open at this. We normally would be open these many hours, but now we can't. So we're just saying we're not going to be open on a Monday or a Monday and a Tuesday. We're going to shift our entire programming on those days. And that's not just for a labor force, because obviously, you can't have 7 days a week full-time employees. You need multiple shifts of people, right? So it's a way to kind of move that around. So that's really interesting stuff. But I do want to talk about technology. Jay, what you're into technology. I mean, you've been doing this a long time, Jay. Now, first of all, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I have to say a few things, because you actually you work at a zoo. I don't know how many years you've been at the zoo. I think it's 30 plus. 42 years at the zoo. And you actually started, I think, at San Diego State, maybe. You have a degree in zoology?
I have a degree in zoology, but never used it when I went to work at the zoo. So I actually started as a busboy in the restaurant because I needed a job because I couldn't afford to go to school and pay money to go to college. I'm there staying there. And I only actually interviewed for 2 jobs when I first started there, and then when I moved over to the marketing department. So I just ended up saying every time we got ready to leave, we gave me a job. So.
Well, you are very well respected in our industry, and you go to a ton of shows. You were here in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago at IPW, and someone said to me, they said, I said, we're gonna have Jay talking about his experiences about Google things to do and Google Reserve and OTA markets and sales. And I said, we're looking at maybe having him chat for 15, 30 minutes. And the guy said, give him half the day. Let him just talk. And Jay, you're totally amazing about all that. But I want to talk just about technology for a second. Because I know you can kind of geek out on technology. And there was something you were telling me the other day about visitor tracking or something that's super new and exciting. I think it's part of US travel, but maybe I'll be quiet and let you talk.
So we actually buy data right now. So we work with a company that we're able to geofence our area and track what is coming in. It's all based on cell phones. All those apps that you decide that you won't have on your phone and you accept under terms and conditions. Yeah. We're tracking every movement that you're making. So that data is segregated to this company because they are part of that collection vehicle, and we track our specific in this area, but we also track entry, track our competitors, we track Osprey Farm, of where they're going, and also the entry business. So that has been real helpful in us deciding how we do our marketing. Based on where people are traveling. And for all of us right now, the biggest push is domestic. So we're looking at a lot of our push is domestic as well as local travel. So LA has been as far as what's happening through San Diego. And also with this data, it knows whether you're an employee because your data is coming in every single day. So they pull that information out. They know if you're only there for 15 or 20 minutes, you might be able to look and just stuff over to the radio station. So you get to see that data and it pulls it out. And it's really important for you to have. Is there any US travel members here, so anything that runs IPW? But if your organization, I don't know you specifically, but if your organization is a member of this travel, if you go onto their site right now, they have like 7 destinations table, and they have another table, but they're doing it for the attraction side also. So what that's going to allow a US travel member to do is they can geofence their specific area and then be able to get the data of time and date, the region that people came from that are visiting your destination, how much time they spent there, and they will they'll geofence their area on your behalf. So the thing is, it needs to be done by this Friday. I was just looking at the information, but find out if your organization went to IPW, they're a US travel member, and they can do that. So just find in the login information, go in there and geofence your area or ask to do it, and you'll have the information available for you to look at and see how people.
Man, it's awesome to see the audience because a lot of people like are literally like looking down at their phones and they're like looking up US travel, IPW, you know, Intershell powwow and all the good stuff. But I also have to say everyone's wearing masks mostly. We don't have to wear masks up here on stage as long as we're a certain distance apart. So if you're watching us, we're, you know, adhering to those guidelines. But when you started talking about data and other markets, like I saw like eyebrows fly through the top of the people's foreheads here, because that is amazing data that really helps, you know, influence decisions. Now, data is one of these things that's awesome, but then it's like, what do you do with it, right? Like, who's really looking at it? So I'm going to start with you, Jay, and then we'll kind of move around. Who's analyzing that data for your sales team, and can you give us an example of any key decisions that you've kind of made or pivoted more recently from the data that you can think of?
Hey, sorry, real quick, Randy and Jay, let's just take a 2-second pause. I'm gonna try and fix it.
Oh, okay. So that's great because Jay's gonna think about this question. Like he's like super excited. So we actually have like,
Randy,
yeah.
Randy, mute your.
Oh, you want me to like actually do something? Okay.
I'm muted.
Okay, now just talk regularly.
Testing. Live from Vegas. Woo!
Wednesday afternoon.
Did you know I ziplined in my Vegas costume? I mean, my Elvis costume? That was pretty awesome. That was pretty cool. I can hear myself in the back. That's really fun.
All right, Jay, go ahead. We're good.
Pearl just asked a great question too. I think we were going to ask too. So what? So Pearl, here, let's let Jay ask his question, and then Pearl is going to ask Jay a question about geofencing. So I had asked Jay, data's awesome. There's a lot of data nerds. A lot of times we're collecting data, and what are we doing with the data? And I was wondering if the zoo had an example of something that you've been doing with that awesome geolocation or any data.
The majority of it is based on our advertising spend. So what we do is we really look at how we target even on the digital side, how we target the different areas as far as our direct buy, as well as what we do in our co-ops. So we do work with our CVBs or Tourism Authority in San Diego. We work with Visit California, but based on what we're looking at and how we want to target our spend, we do it that way. The other thing too is, you know, we're talking about the OTAs before and how, you know, they're evil and they're taking over all our spend. There are certain regions that you need to have them work for you because you cannot afford to spend money in certain regions. So I'm working with an OTA right now where we've developed a dividing line where we will do our SEM spend on this side. You can do a spend over in this area, and we will allow it just as long as they don't target any of our regions. And that's real helpful because, you know, like I said, we can't spend a lot of money in other regions. We're a not-for-profit organization also. So we're a big organization and we're very notable, but our budgets are relatively small when you look at it. So I think it's really helpful to have the data. It's expensive, but I think it's really, really helpful.
Cool. Hey, Pearl, do you want to ask a little bit more of Jay?
Yeah,
I was really curious because I love the idea of geofencing, but I have a 52,000 square foot building now, so it's not quite the same versus the zoo. Do you geofence and micro geofence within the zoo itself so that you can track the data of your customers as they move around?
So we don't. For the data that we are using that we buy, we geofence the perimeter, and it's up to you to decide what that perimeter looks like.
Okay.
So whether you decide to have it include the parking lot or not the parking lot, we choose not to, because our parking lot is free. So we have a lot of people that will come in and park and then go into Balboa Park. So it really doesn't count. So we geofence just our specific region. And back to the U.S. travel segment, they can geofence, let's say, and what they're allowing is you can have up to 2 areas. You can geofence specifically the wall around one area and the wall around another area within your geofence. So it's that accurate as far as being able to pull the data. So for instance, Broadway, they have a lot of different theaters that are right next to each other. They're geofencing specific theaters within the region, so they know exactly who's coming from where.
So something really awesome is happening, because what's happening is that our live audio feed is being picked up. Now, before, when I was talking a lot, that everybody could hear me. So hi, everybody. But now everybody is hearing everybody here, and they're losing their minds. Like Tim Canada's talking all about the geofencing, and there's all these other questions. I'm getting some private messages about it too. And they're mentioning Arrivalist, I think is the name of one of the technologies.
That's who we use.
That's who you use? Okay, well, he mentioned 2. So he said Alexander Babbage, Arrivalist is what he said. So if we're here to kind of say, yeah, go out and try to find those solutions and whatnot. And I want to talk about buying data and buying, space. So let's start the Mob Museum. You're in charge of your digital media buys and social buys and all that. So what are you focusing on right now today? And maybe share with us a little bit, Jackie, about how that differed from where you were buying before.
Sure. So, I mean, similar to Jay, we're also a nonprofit, right? So in terms of your spend, it's not going to be as high as maybe some of the other attractions in Las Vegas. So you really have to think about how you're going to strategically spend that, but also how you're going to still communicate and market about your attraction. That doesn't necessarily mean a direct media buy. So in terms of media buys, we use, our own first party data, which is the things that you get directly from your customer, right? Like your survey feedback, the information you get from them when they're transacting on your website, or like a zip code that you get at box office, or an email address, et cetera. And we combine that with kind of the third party data that you get just from advertising on kind of the major digital ad platforms like Facebook. If you're buying programmatically through something like the Trade Desk, or Google is another really big one that in the digital ad space. So we use a lot of their data segments to segment out what we're going to spend and strategize that. But you have to combine your ad spend with all the other, organic ways that you can get people to your organization. So social media is a very, very important part of your marketing strategy at any organization. It's not just about buying on those platforms, but it's about putting out, frequent content that's going to get a high reach globally. It has potential to, and it's completely free. Also, working with social media influencers has been really successful for us. Based on our survey results, we know that, a lot of people find out about us from internet searches, but a lot of people also find out about us from friend or family. So
yeah, that word of mouth is important. Yeah,
absolutely. So working with influencers has been really successful for us because they create positive content about your organization, but they push it out to their audience, and they're almost like little mini publishers, right? They have this large, engaged, trusted audience. And if they're the ones touting your brand and saying, this is really cool, it's almost like a friend telling a friend, and it's way more powerful sometimes than you touting your own organization. So that's been really successful for us. Press also, having good relationships with press members, both locally, regionally, nationally,
is really, really important because people also learn about you from larger publishers that they trust. So it's really, the data part of it is extremely important, especially with, I don't know how much Jay has talked about, like how much data privacy is changing and data tracking is
And
changing.
actually,
in
we're
our
getting lots of,
industry.
we had some questions about like, do people know that they're being tracked? Is this data? I mean, at this stage, I'd have to say most people know they're being tracked if you're on Facebook or any of these tools. I mean, they know where you are. I was tagged a bazillion times by this group alone, and my wife absolutely knows where I am just because of being tagged. But obviously, you know, it is the privacy aspect is becoming a bigger deal for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, most smartphone users in the US are Apple iOS users, and Apple is, with every new update of their software, they keep introducing new privacy settings that do kind of give blind spots that you didn't have before on, let's say, you know, tracking with Facebook or tracking via other apps that you were able to get in the past. Apple has made it very easy for users to now opt out of that data. So as that continues to kind of be an important thing for Apple, and, you know, as iPhone and Android phones like make those privacy settings even easier for users to turn off and stop being tracked, organizations are going to have to kind of pivot how they get data and rely maybe more on their first party data to make those decisions.
Right, but we are capturing more first party data in advance too, which is also nice, you know, because we have some of that. Sorry, Pearl, to interrupt you there.
Say, and if you haven't yet spoken to your agencies or your internal groups, especially when it comes to email marketing and some of your pixel tracking, that's really going to shift a lot too because of all the new Apple privacy laws, where you may not know that the email was opened, or if it was open, you'll know that, but you won't know anything that happened upon point of opening. So there is actually going to be a big shift over the next 3 to 6 months. So I would just encourage you to speak to your agencies or your internal groups to stay on top of it, to ensure that you don't see any big ebb and flows, especially in your reporting. At some point you'll see a dip. You're like, what happened? So if you can stay on top of that, then you can actually counteract a little bit with other marketing strategies, utilizing your first data, et cetera.
Yeah, that was a concern for us also, as far as the capture of data. The new Apple release on their new operating system, especially on cell phone tracking, it's going to become a lot more broad. So when you track someone where you were specifically supposed to be able to see someone in a specific destination, the actual circle or area that they show is going to be a lot more broad. So that's one of the concerns we have. But they're also developing, or they have developed some technology where they're using, it's another one of those things where they allow the use of data through, let's say, airline mile partners, some of those other areas that are that you have membership into, to tie that information, credit card information. They're tying all that in together in order to get an accurate picture of where people are traveling and going to. So there's other companies developing other technology in order for you to be able to track specifically where people are going. And I think that's going to play a role too, as soon as they broaden and they're more into the GDPR, what do you call it?
California Consumer Protection.
Yeah, just being able to protect
Yeah.
the data. And the GDPR has been in place in Europe for a while, and
I would say California is probably leading the charge, right?
Yeah.
For bringing over those same types of anonymization policies. And we, as a company here, Gateway Ticketing, we provide tools to help, you know, anonymize that data, find that data, because it's a requirement with our UK partners and in other regions. And I would say California is leading, I think, the charge here and it's going to kind of move around, right? A lot of times what California does, a lot of other states will end up adopting. So I'm going to shift gears, and Pearl, you know, we had a little chat at the beginning. You were talking about like loving the IT background, the technology. You love the technology and the CRM and ticketing, and you're in a new role. So our audience here that is at this user group meeting, we probably have a little bit more of a majority of like the ticketing side, the ticketing system administration side, the technical teams, the IT teams. A little smaller slice would be, I would say, on the other spectrum would be like the marketers And then we have a lot of operation teams and finance teams as well. So I think, and when I used to be an operator, when marketing comes up with all these great ideas, like they want to do this, we want to execute this, we want to do this, this, and this, and this, and they're like, so this is what we're doing, and then they like literally, I'm pointing at all you in the room, right? For most of you, like they're like, okay, go do it, and then sometimes you're left going, oh, I don't know how we could execute that from
And
a
we
technology.
need it yesterday.
Yeah, and we needed it yesterday, right? So like kind of the crowd here kind of knows what I'm talking about, right? We need to do this. And then by the way, there's this little group at the very end, finance, that usually pipes up and goes, hey, how are we going to track all this? How are we going to pay for this? What are we going to do? So what is your advice, kind of sitting in both worlds? Because you just come newly into the marketing role here at Area 15, but you had the technical. What is your advice to say, how do you bring those teams together? Whether it be, let's just look at one launch, like for any project, one marketing initiative, how do you bring those teams together to create success?
Randy, real quick, I
Yeah.
just want to interject and say I don't appreciate your characterization of marketers in that statement.
But it's a true.
I agree.
Well, I didn't say it. No, I did. All right, I'll just be quiet for a second.
I'm just putting you on the spot.
I know that's. I think it had a lot of truth behind it. It's an excitement of closing the deal, and the marketing teams are on to the next deal, and that's what they're supposed to be doing, right? And that's how they bring sales in and everything. So, what would you say is like, what is your advice to help bring all those teams together for a successful launch?
So, it's a loaded question, but
It's a huge, yeah.
But so coming you, especially actually into Area 15, and I come from the CRM side, so in marketing automation and actual database CRM, and then working with VIP guests, et cetera, and trying to figure out who and how much is spending for what is really kind of like who's spending and who's buying and who's going to spend it next is really what all of us are thinking about, right? But in my case, given my experience, I fortunately sit across from my ticketing manager, who's amazing. And my recommendation is to speak to the operational, the IT side, the people in the crux, like my ticketing manager, and ask him what's been successful and what hasn't been successful. Because I can come up with 1,000 different campaigns and think that this is going to sell tickets, but I've only been at the company for a few weeks. He'll know what worked and what didn't work. So rather than me go down this path and get our creative team to build 15 assets and think of a tagline and hire a copywriter and all these things, I'm like, hey, we tried this before, and if we have tried it, what worked and what didn't work, and what can we shift? So my immediate advice is first find out who's at the company and who can help you discover the information that you need. I think all of us probably know that. But it is to then look at the data, right? Because what I think as professionals, our goal, or at least my role, is to then use the data that's been collected in the past and try to make some really educated guesses or some really smart decisions of what we can do in the future, especially into 2022. So me like having access to that information is my priority, the company.
Yeah.
And it's making sure that information exists. And if it doesn't exist, that is the first thing that you do. You're like, all right, we don't have this data that I thought that we should have. And how do we go about getting that so that when we go into planning, especially for the next year, that information is getting collected already?
Yeah, that's a great, and I know, Jackie, you're kind of nodding. You want to jump in as well, it sounds like, and Jay wants to absolutely correct me when I was wrong about marketing and sales. But I think we have a really great opportunity right now too, because what I've seen when I work, and I'm an advocate for projects or from a consultative view, is that a lot of organizations over time have institutionalized processes, and those departments have kind of spread out, right? So like CRM's over here and they're doing their thing, and you could have multiple systems. You could have like there's some cross communication, and through a lot of the changes of staffing that has happened in the last 18 months, whether it was because there's labor that's leaving or you can't afford to keep those teams, there has been a consolidation. And I would say that this is a great time to meet with those new teams and build those new processes together and show how they're all interconnected. because now, because we know exactly who these visitors are going to be, it gives us that much greater opportunity. Our friend Corey, who's our CRM expert here at Gateway, she thrives in saying, wow, because we've pre-identified these groups of people, we were talking about frictionless experiences, it makes it so much easier. The messaging you're going to give to a tourist pre-arrival is a lot different than your local. You know, you're going to tell the local, this is how you've been, you know, this is what we've got new for you. You know, this is the new special drink. This is whatever it is in the underground at the Mob Museum. So this is a really great time to kind of rebuild or start fresh with new teams. That's just my take. Do you want to share a little bit about how you guys work together in your team?
Sure. I mean, we, you know, marketing takes all this data and analyzes it and tries to come up with new ways to kind of build brand awareness and get more people to the organization, right? So you start at that big idea phase, but if you want to be successful, you involve operations very early on. And Lovey knows this. We sit close together too in the office. It helps when there's one person that's always kind of bridging the gap between departments too. So if you're in a marketing meeting and you're having these discussions, it is you kind of have to get ticketing and operations involved pretty early to see if you can make that idea come to life or if you need to adjust based on their recommendations. So we usually like start at the idea phase and then involve ticketing pretty early.
One of my really great leaders is here in the audience. His name is Paul. He's right over there. Hi, Paul. One of the things that I loved about his leadership style, and it was probably something that we had been doing for a while, but we would meet very regularly as not just a ticketing team, but as a team that it touches ticketing. And I don't even know what that team would technically be called, but there was marketing was at the table, finance was at the table, operations was at the table, the technology teams were at everyone's at the table, and we would just share. And it seems so basic, and I've told this. So he would just say, "Hey, what's on the short-term radar? What's on the midterm radar? What's on the long-term radar?" And if marketing had a plan that, you know, maybe it's not one of these things that is like, I needed it today, right? It could be something that they're planning. They were planting the seeds, the discussions were starting, because no one wants surprises, right? We want to be able to react if we need to, but just meeting together in that space is really important, because ticketing is a huge aspect. It's how we make more money. And that's my next comment, by the way. I want to say to all three of you, all this stuff, how do we sell more tickets? Like, what do we do to sell more tickets? I'm gonna go right to the sales guy, Jay. What are your top ideas? How can we sell more?
That's a tough question, because for us, it's right now is a real difficult time.
Yeah.
Because our international site has completely dried up, but it's also an opportunity, because all those markets are going to be fresh for all of us when we get back into the business of selling. Like Randy said, that a lot of the players have changed. So you get to develop new relationships with new people, which is going to be really helpful in the long run for all of us in some respects, just because, you know, people that have long-standing relationships with people, they tend to take care of those people first. So with new players in the marketplace, especially internationally, I think there's some big opportunities, and we're going to try to jump in earlier than later this time, just because we find that big opportunity. Selling more tickets, like Randy had said before, like I've said before, the OTAs, they're your frenemy. They're gonna really help you, but they're also ones that you don't want to give too much to at the same time. It really depends on what you're looking at. We're trying to push a lot more towards our own direct website, just because we make more money. Some of the things that we have done is we've looked at our margins that we give our different players that sell our tickets on our behalf, and we've been evaluating those and see where it makes the best sense. So it's not really sometimes about how many more tickets you're going to sell, but how much more you're going to make off the tickets that you do sell. I think that's probably the key. Over more isn't always better, you know, and I think a lot of you have seen that
by what you've done with your organizations by limiting, you know, having time ticketing being put in and limiting the number of guests that you can. And sometimes you have natural limitations just because of the size of your space. It's optimizing your ticket pricing to best suit your customers that are coming in.
And price optimization is still something that, you know, in meetings like this, when you could have those conversations, you know, you can kind of say, what is it that you guys are thinking of in certain ways? And I think that's important. I wrote down on the chat, and we got some thumbs up and likes about your line, OTAs are your frenemy, you know, but I love, you know, they're a huge sales channel. And we talked a lot about some of the brand OTAs. I'm very loyal to my brands personally. And I do see value in buying through OTA partners. I love to always buy direct if I can. But if it's something that's unknown to me, I sometimes will move through one of my OTA channels. And I think you said something really interesting, that you don't have to discount through those channels.
Right. Here's one that, you know, they have and they're a sponsor, so I feel comfortable saying good things about them, is Groupon. So with Groupon, I know they in the past, they've been a very deeply discounted product that you had to work with them in order for you to work with them. So for us, we sell full price tickets, and we do that with all our OTAs. Everyone has to sell at full retail price across the board. And when you do that, what's really good is when you say that you're doing this with everyone, they'll tattletale on each other. So if someone is discounting when they're not supposed to, if someone's advertising or buying SEM when they're not supposed to, you get the call directly saying, hey, so-and-so's doing this, and then we're able to take care of it right away. But Groupon is a good model because they have a set number of users. They have the women between the ages of 30 and 40 with families and
46-year-old men.
And 46-year-old men that are buying tickets, and what's good about it too is their credit card information is stored in their platform. So if you have a login and have bought from them before, they store all that information. So it becomes pretty much a 2-click buy. You choose the number of tickets you want, and then you purchase buy, and they deliver the tickets. Mm-hmm. So with that platform, it's easy to purchase from. You don't have to worry about it. You can really work with your representative on your margins and what you want to spend. And the other thing too is from time to time when there is a need period, we'll run a promotion. Usually when we're really slow and we know that we have some need times, but we really limit the number of days they can go. So it may be a Monday through Thursday ticket with blackout dates. And that also saves you from the other OTA saying, why do you have this low price ticket? And we say, because there's limitations to it. It's not a 7-day-a-week ticket that we sell you. It's a special ticket with limitations and blackout dates.
Yeah, that's great information. Yeah, and what I love about where we are in the OTA world now is that it's really a voucherless world, right? And we wouldn't be making OTA deals if those tickets couldn't come direct to the gate. In our software, using Galaxy Connect, those tickets are live, they're dated, they're capacity managed, and they go right to the gate. So you don't have that whole other paperwork shuffle related to working with partners. All right, so Jackie, how about you? How do we sell more tickets? What have you found that's super successful? This is probably gonna be our last question, everybody, before we head off to break. So Pearl, you could probably guess I'll ask you as well.
I mean, I think that's going to be a tailored answer to every organization. So we've talked about data a lot here, but understanding what your opportunities are at your specific organization is going to be kind of step one.
Yeah.
But to grow more tickets, it's not just on marketing, right? It's marketing's job to kind of go where the customers are and make sure that as many people know about you as possible, right? But if they get to your site or they get to your box office and the operations side of it fails, then you don't continue to build that word of mouth. And, that's a pain point for you right there that you need to solve. If they get to your website and it's really difficult for someone to check out and they leave, you could spend all the money in the world getting people to your site, but then you lose them right there. So how do you fix that to get
Mhm.
more ticket sales. If they come to your organization and they have a customer service issue or an operational issue during their experience, then again, you don't get that like word of mouth growth. So I would say, analyze your data as much as you can and understand your organization as much as you can. Keep an eye on market trends, not only in market, but nationwide, what's happening, what emerging platforms, and, especially on social, like there's a new platform
Right.
every couple of months or whatever. So
I love how well positioned both Area 15 and the Mob Museum is right now, because like you both are catering to like the masses. And San Diego Zoo, everyone loves the zoo, right? You belong in the zoo, trademark line, but you still gotta love animals and zoos and go there. But at the Mob Museum, you could like gangsters, or you could be totally into what's going on with the police or organized crime then or now. Or
right.
we had a lot of fun talking about Vegas and Prohibition era stuff. And then crime podcasts are like out of control right now. It's like I can't not listen to they're all over my phone all the time.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean, that's been a really big audience for us, is the true crime contextual
Followers, yeah.
followers. Yeah.
Yeah, this is where it
exactly.
happened, and you could kind of go on those
Because we
journeys.
have a crime lab, we focus on forensic science. So
Yeah, CSI,
Yeah.
there's like 9 or 10 different versions of that
Right.
show. One of them is in Las Vegas, I think, right? CSI
Yeah,
Vegas.
yes.
So there you go. How about you, Pearl? By the way, I have to say one thing. I was driving by, I was not driving, I was the Uber coming home. I love the Area 15 sign, and you can barely see it says Area 15, and then it says like does not exist.
Right.
I love that marketing, because like I could kind of see around the corner of what that is. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, how do you sell a ticket to something that doesn't exist? I think it's one is I feel really blessed in the sense that I get to work at a company that's brand new, because when you're selling the new ticket in town, literally the challenges aren't quite the same. I would say that the challenges that we have are what ticket do we sell? It's not how many do we sell, but what ticket do we sell right now? What does the locals ticket look like? What does a bundle ticket look like? What does a package ticket look like? If Meowl is selling a ticket for X and we're selling a ticket for this experience for Y, how are we doing this together and trying to operate in the same space and share the wallet without cannibalizing ourselves? That's also a marketing issue. It's like, if I have 15 campaigns running, I might be cannibalizing that ticket sale altogether and lose the visitor. And at the end of the day, each ticket equals a visitor. So the visitor, I think, going back to what Jackie was saying, it's what is the visitor's experience like, and what made them decide to come to your specific attraction or your experience or museum, stay there, and then return, and the reputation around it. So there's so many questions that I have, especially to everyone in this audience, to be honest. But for us, it's about trying to identify the right ticket to sell. And then once we can get that nailed down, then we can think about how many more of those we sell.
Yeah.
If
I think
otherwise, yeah. I mean, we would love to sell the ticket to every person who is in Las Vegas at this very moment in time.
Absolutely, at full price, right?
Yes.
And I think it's an interesting one, because when I look at Area 15, we have attractions here that have tons of offerings. There's zoos that have so many experiences on the inside. There's all these things, and it's almost that's what you're kind of you're competing with. Like, do I want the person to go? Do I have a partnership with my food and beverage or my retail, or would I rather them pay full price for the carousel or the train or the tram or whatever it is? So yeah, you probably have to. You want to make it really easy for them to buy what they want to buy, so you can anticipate what they're going to be most likely to experience, and, make it easy for them to buy that. So, wow, this is great.
It's fun.
So we're probably winding up. Anybody in the audience wants any quick shout out or question? Oh, Jared, we're all good. All right, so Jared's got the mic if he needs it. You know what we're gonna do? What I would probably say is we'll probably go to break, and we'll have some snacks together as a team. For those of us online, by the way, Natalie and others were saying the camera was really far away, because it's right there, because we wanted you guys to see all of us. I want to thank everybody for joining us for our webinar Wednesday live. Pearl, I hope you stay and hang out with us. Everyone here is super friendly. Jackie, please stick around. We'll have some snacks and breaks. So if you're at home or in your home office, go have a snack. Thank you for joining us.
And Randy, I'm actually gonna pan the camera, so everyone wave goodbye when I say not yet. But,
okay.
Because we do have a bunch of people on who really wish they were at UGM, a bunch of people that everyone here hangs out with every year at UGM, but we all know that this was just a strange year because of COVID. They maybe couldn't get budgets or were concerned about traveling. So hopefully this should work. Yes,
the camera is going. I see it's moving. Hey, camera.
Start waving.
Woo! Everybody else back home and in all the cities. I see Isaac. I see Bill, Natalie, and Phoenix. There's a lot of people from a lot of different places that are here. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for coming on. I can see your face, Tim. Hey. Hey, Steven from Monticello. How's it going in Virginia? Jared in the room right there. Hi, Jared. Hey, everybody. Well, thank you guys so much. If you guys can give a huge round of applause for our awesome panelists. Thank you guys so much. And we will take a break and be back here in like 20 minutes.